This video is about apostrophes. There are two types of apostrophes, the omissive apostrophe and the possessive apostrophe. I will start with the omissive apostrophe. So, what is an omissive apostrophe? Omissive means missing. Something is missing. Omissive, omission. So it is an apostrophe that shows that a letter or a group of letters are missing. For example, I don't drive. In I don't drive, D-O-N apostrophe T, the apostrophe there tells me there's a letter missing between the N and the T. The letter missing is O, because I mean I do not drive. Not always that straightforward. In this won't do, so we still have the letter O missing in won't between N and T. But won't in itself means will not. This won't do means this will not do. So won't is kind of a contraction of will not. It can be done. Again, I've got an omissive in can't, cannot be done, but do note that cannot is one word, C-A-N-N-O-T, not two words. Can't, C-A-N apostrophe T, omissive. Anti-marvelous. Now, anti-marvelous, again, we've got the letter missing O, the letter O missing there, which is are not. However, anti-marvelous is for am I not marvelous? It's kind of an exception here because we don't usually say I are not. We don't say I are not, we say I am not. But in that particular situation, when we say in a question style, we say anti-marvelous or am I not marvelous, not any other ways. But you could have, instead of I am, I'm. I am here, I'm here. And here the apostrophe will show the missing letter A. You could also have fish and chips, especially when you speak quickly. When you speak quickly, you'd say fish and chips instead of fish and chips. So when you say I like fish and chips, apostrophe and apostrophe, the apostrophe between the N shows that letters are missing, the A and the D. It's also used to imitate speech, because when we speak normally or fast, we tend to gobble up some letters. We tend to forget saying some letters. An example from Adam Bede by George Eliot.
I should know what it is, sir, for I have lived butler, very going, at 15 year. It's Captain Doningthorne as is there here, sir.
The apostrophe here shows where the letters are missing. And you can see that George Eliot here, in her book, Adam Bede, tried to imitate the speech, the accent of the characters in her book by using these apostrophes. Now let's have a look at some confusion with words that have apostrophes and those that do not have an apostrophe. The main confusion and the main mistakes that people make is with the word it's. It's, is it ITS or is it IT apostrophe S? Well, it depends. It depends how you use it's. Remember that an apostrophe shows that a letter is missing. Like I'm for I am or don't for do not. In relation to it's, IT apostrophe S, the apostrophe here shows that the letter I is missing. It's means it is when it's got an apostrophe. IT apostrophe S, it is, it's. It's always, it is. IT apostrophe S is always, it is. So if you mean it is, then you use IT apostrophe S. Its ITS does exist. And its ITS does mean possession. It's in itself has the meaning of possession within it. It doesn't need an apostrophe, that one for possession at all. And the use of the possessive apostrophe, the apostrophe to show possession, I'm going to go through that in a moment and explain to you why it's ITS, even though it is possession, even though it's got the meaning of possession, does not have an apostrophe. The one with apostrophe always means it is. Another common mistake is with your. Is it your Y-O-U-R? Or is it your Y-O-U apostrophe R? Well, we've got an apostrophe there. The apostrophe here shows that the letter A is missing. When you say, you're beautiful, you mean you are beautiful. You're beautiful. You are beautiful. So it's apostrophe RE. Your, Y-O-U-R, is again to share possession. Like, this is your book, not mine. Your, Y-O-U apostrophe R-E, always means you are. If you mean you are, it's apostrophe R-E. Another common one, there. Is it T-H-E-I-R, T-H-E-R-E, or T-H-E-Y, apostrophe R-E. And again, I've got an apostrophe there, apostrophe R-E. And again, I've got that letter A missing. They are. They, T-H-E-Y, apostrophe R-E, means they are, and always means they are. So if you mean they are, it is apostrophe R-E. There, T-H-E-I-R, also has a meaning of possession, like your, as I mentioned earlier. It is their car, not mine. T-H-E-I-R. T-H-E-R-E is more with the verb be, like there is a car outside, or there are cars outside, or there will be thunderstorm. That's all T-H-R-E, unless you mean there as in here, there. Here, there. T-H-E-R-E again. Omissive apostrophe is quite straightforward to use. In other words, letter missing, then you use an apostrophe. But when I say letter missing, I mean when you shorten the word, two words blending together. Like your, you are, or don't, do not. Which is a bit different from abbreviations. Abbreviations is a completely different video. What is the matter with the possessive apostrophe? Why do people struggle with it? The possessive apostrophe shows possession. The issue with that is possession is not just shown with an apostrophe. There are different ways to express possession. For example, you can express possession with the verbs have and possess. Libraries have books as well as CDs and DVDs. So here, have shows possession. The libraries possess these books and the CDs and the DVDs. So the words have and possess got within their own meaning the sense of possession. Same thing with what we call possessive determiners or possessive pronouns. This book is mine. When I say this book is mine, mine shows possession. It means this book belongs to me. Mine literally means belongs to me. We've got the meaning of possession within mine, as in with your, or is, or her, and so on. Another one is by using the structure possess item, followed by of, followed by a possessor. So when I say these are the books or the local library, these are the books, the possess item, of the local library, the possessor. So here, possess item, of possessor. Books of the local libraries. None of these examples need an apostrophe, and yet all of them express possession. So don't get confused with the word possession, because not every single instance that has the meaning of possession needs an apostrophe. That's one thing to keep in mind. The second common mistake that people make with apostrophes is a confusion between plural and possession. Now the problem with using apostrophes as a possession is it uses the sound s. You've got an S somewhere. When you use a possessive apostrophe, there's an S, there's a sound s. But the problem with that S is it is also used to make the plural. What do I mean by plural? Well, nouns, not all of them, but what we call countable nouns. Countable nouns are nouns so that you can count 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can count these objects. I can count tables. 1 table, 2 tables, 3 tables. So these are countable nouns. Now these countable nouns could have a singular form, 1 table, or a plural form. 2 tables, many tables, loads of tables. Now singular table compared to plural tables. When I make plural from table, I add the simple S at the end. Tables. But the thing is, with the apostrophe, the possessive apostrophe, also use the S, sound. So people get confused with the apostrophe because we use the sound for the plural as well. And they end up using an apostrophe to make the plural, and that's a mistake. The possessive apostrophe is just there to show possession. It's never used to make the plural. So we're going to have a look at that in more details. But to start with, let's be clear about the distinction between singular words and plural words, because you really need to be clear in your mind to avoid making a mistake here. Singular, think of single. Singular means single. Single just means one. House, window, tax, wolf, lady, child, cactus, foot, phenomenon. Now there are some words like cactus that ends with an S but is still singular. Cactus is singular. It's got a plural form as well. The plural form of cactus could be cactuses or cacti. So you either add es at the end of cactus or complete different form cacti, an I instead of US. I said earlier that to make the plural you just add an S. That's what we call a regular plural. So when I've got house, I could just add an S to it to get plural, houses. So houses, windows. Houses, windows are the plural form of house and window. All you have to do, I just add an S to make these two words plural. Now I call them regular plurals, but I've got semi-regular plurals as well. What I mean by semi-regular is because the ending of the words is still an S, but spelling changes a little bit. What do I mean by the ending changes a little bit? When I think of tax compared to taxes, I don't just add an S to tax, I have to add ES. Tax, taxes. Wolf, LF. But when you've got more than one wolf, you've got wolves, VES. So the F changes into VES, loads of wolves. A lady, Y at the end, but when you've got more than one lady, you've got ladies. The Y changes to IES. So we still have an S at the end of these plural words, but the ending changes a little bit. That's why I call them semi-regular. Regular, you just add an S. Semi-regular still ends with an S, but the ending changes a bit. Spelling of the ending is a bit different. It's not just adding an S. And now we've got completely irregular plural. Completely irregular plurals are all the plurals that do not end with an S. It ends with a complete different way. It's not always at the ending, it could be the middle of the word that changed. For example, I've got 1 foot. Well, I don't really have 1 foot, I've got actually 2 feet. So it's not 2 foot, it's 2 feet. Foot, 1 foot, 2 feet. I've got a child, but I could also have more than one child, and that would be children. Child, just one, singular, children, plural. Does that end with an S? I mentioned cactus earlier, cacti. Cacti is an irregular plural. So I could have one phenomenon, but more than one phenomenon is phenomena. Ends with an A, phenomena, not an S. So, children, cacti, feet, phenomena, they don't end with an S, but they are still plural words. They don't follow the pattern of just adding an S. They are completely different. That's why we call them irregular plural. And the thing is, you have to be clear between regular plural or semi-regular plural and irregular plural. Because how you deal with regular plurals and irregular plurals with apostrophe is different. But before I tell you about that difference, let's go through some golden rules. And these golden rules are very, very important. Always true. First one, regular plural or semi-regular plural, the S is always glued to the main word. You never separate the S with an apostrophe. So your regular plural words or semi-regular plural words, when they're plural words, the S is glued to the word. glued, super glue, super glue. Don't unstick the S from the main word with an apostrophe when they are used as a plural word. Second golden rule. Never glue an S at the end of an irregular plural. An irregular plural does not have an S glued at the end of it or attached at the end of it at all, because you do not say the school of my children's is closed. You don't say the school of my children's is closed. You say the school of my children is closed. Children is already plural. It's an irregular plural, doesn't need an S attached to it at all. And the third golden rule, and that's a very important one. Possessive apostrophes are only used with nouns or noun phrases. The main word is a noun. And that's very important to remember, because that explains to you why its ITS, even though it has a meaning of possession, doesn't have an apostrophe, because its ITS is a possessive determiner, it's not a noun. The possessive apostrophe is always used with nouns or noun phrases. That explains why when I say his house is modern, his doesn't have an apostrophe. I could say its house is modern as well. Why not? Its house is modern, its doesn't have an apostrophe. Its ITS works like his or her. If you think about it, I could say the cat and his kittens sleep downstairs. Or I could say the cat and her kittens sleep downstairs. Or I can say the cat and its kittens sleep downstairs. I don't need an apostrophe with his, her, or its at all, because his, her, its are not nouns to start with, they are determiners. And second, because the meaning of possession is with these words. You only use a possessive apostrophe when you need to show possession. But if the meaning of possession is within the words in itself, then you don't need any other technique to show possession. It's already in there. When I say the cat and his kittens, his are the meaning of the kitten belong to the cat. That's why its, it, apostrophe s is always it is. But its, its as a determiner for possession, a possessive determiner, doesn't need an apostrophe. Same thing with possessive pronouns. Possessive pronouns like mine. So, possessive determiners is my, your, his, her, its, our, their. So I could say, my house is modern, your house is modern, his house is modern, her house is modern, its house is modern, our house is modern, their house is modern. These are possessive determiners. Possessive pronouns, however, is a bit different. I could say the book is mine, or the book is yours, or the book is his, or the book is hers, or the book is ours, or the book is theirs. So here, mine, yours, his, hers, ours, and theirs are pronouns. Possessive pronouns, and they do have the meaning of possession. They don't need an apostrophe. They are pronouns, not nouns. Apostrophe not needed at all. The possessive apostrophe is used with nouns or noun phrases, not with the possessive determiner, not with the possessive pronoun, or even with verbs. And people sometimes get confused with the verbs when it is used in the present tense, the third person, and the singular. What do I mean by that? Is sometimes a verb could end with an S. Okay? Like, the scientific community considers Archimedes as the greatest mathematician of ancient history. The scientific community considers, no apostrophe. Okay? Consider is a verb. We don't have possession whatsoever. We don't have any letter missing, so no apostrophe needed here. Verbs do not need an apostrophe unless there is a letter missing. If a letter is not missing, then we don't need an apostrophe whatsoever. Possessive determinants, no apostrophe because they are not nouns. Possessive pronouns, no apostrophes because they are not nouns, even though they end with an S. Okay, so when I say his cat, is ends with an S, but you don't need an apostrophe. Its cat ends with an S, but doesn't need an apostrophe. Now let's have a look at the structure of the possessive apostrophe. To have that possession meaning, you need a specific structure. You need a possessor and you need a possessed item side by side. Possessor first, followed by the possessed item. The possessed item is what the possessor has. The possessed item belongs to the possessor. The possessor is the person or the thing that actually has the possessed item. The possessor is a noun. The possessed item is a noun or a noun phrase. What I mean by that is the noun could be with adjectives. So an adjective like blue, blue car. I could say Peter's blue car. Peter's blue car, the blue car of Peter. Blue car is a noun phrase, and blue car here is my possessed item. The blue car belongs to Peter. Another thing to consider, the apostrophe goes with the possessor only. The apostrophe is only with the possessor, never with the possessed item. Possessed item does not have the apostrophe, only the possessor. So in my structure, possessor plus possessed item is actually possessor with apostrophe, apostrophe S or S apostrophe, plus possessed item. The apostrophe always goes with the possessor. I said the apostrophe always goes with the possessor. But the apostrophe, does it go before or after the S? Is the question. And this is where people get confused. So when is it before the S and when is it after the S? If you got the structure singular possessor, possessed item, then to be singular possessor, apostrophe S, followed by the possessed item. If the plural is regular or semi-regular, then we've got the construction regular or semi-regular plural possessor, then we need to add an apostrophe followed by the possessed item. So regular, semi-regular plural possessor plus apostrophe plus possessed item. Why do I just say plus apostrophe and not S apostrophe? Well, because a regular or semi-regular plural already has an S attached to it. A plural word, a regular plural word, the S is glued to the main word. It already has an S attached to it. So I don't need to add another S. I just need to add an apostrophe after the plural word. Now compare these two sentences. The park's opening hours are changing. The difference between these two sentences is the first one, the park's, apostrophe S. The second one, the park's, apostrophe after, park's. The two of them are correct. It really depends on the context. Because when you say the park's opening hours are changing, then you could be living in a town that has only one park. So if the town has only one park, then the park's opening hours are changing. You know, we're talking about just, that park. We've got only one park. It's just one park. Hence, apostrophe S. Park in singular here. If, however, you live in a town that has 2 parks or 3 parks, then it's different. Because the opening hours could be changing for all of them. So all the parks of the towns, the opening hours are going to change. So in this case, I've got more than one park. So parks, plural. I'm talking about the opening hours being changed for all the parks. So the parks, apostrophe, opening hours are changing. So that's the difference. So when you say the parks, apostrophe S, only one park. When you say the parks, apostrophe, opening hours, we've got 2 or more parks here. Another one to compare. The factory's manager has resigned. Apostrophe S. The factory's situation at the industrial estate is not clear. The factory's apostrophe situation at the industrial estate is not clear. Do note the spelling difference. Factories is Y apostrophe S. Factory's situation is IES apostrophe. The Y changes to IES when it becomes plural. Factory Y singular, factory IES plural. Factory's IES is always plural. And factory's IES never has an apostrophe before the S here. Because if you put an apostrophe before the S, like IE apostrophe S, then you're telling me there's a singular word, factory IE. We don't. That doesn't exist. Factory IE does not exist. Factory singular is with a Y. It's not IE. So factories, IES, never, ever, ever, ever have an apostrophe before the S at all. Because factories IES is always plural. Plural, 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 plural. Now let's have a look at the possessor as an irregular plural. So irregular plural possessor, what happens with that? If you remember my golden rule, I had a golden rule when you never, ever, ever, ever glue an S to an irregular plural. You don't glue an S to the irregular plural at all. So that means that it's got to be apostrophe S with an irregular plural. So our structure here is irregular plural possessor plus apostrophe S plus possessed item. So I could say Dinesh sleeps at the men's dormitory, MEN apostrophe S. Another situation which is a bit more complex, not often used, but could be used, it's when you've got a possessor followed by a possessed item, which could also be a possessor, followed by another possessed item. Ouch. What do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. My mother's best friend's daughter is a surgeon. Here, well, I say possessed item for the daughter. Obviously, the daughter belongs to no one, but it's just to illustrate my point. Okay? The daughter is a possessed item of the best friend. So the daughter belongs to the best friend. So the best friend is the possessor. But then the best friend becomes a possessed item because the best friend belongs to my mother, the possessor. So here best friend has got both the role of possessor and possessed item. That's a bit more complicated. My mother's best friend's daughter is a surgeon. Means the daughter of the best friend of my mother. It's not often used, but it could be used. Now, because it is my mother's apostrophe S, I've got only one mother, that's why it is apostrophe S, singular. My mother's got only one best friend, so it is apostrophe S, and that best friend only has one daughter. So, mother, best friend, daughter, they are all singular. We don't often use that structure because it's a bit more complicated. Maybe easier to say the daughter of my mother's best friend. And I think more people will probably say the daughter of my mother's best friend rather than my mother's best friend's daughter. Let's be clear about one thing. Abbreviations. The rule with abbreviations is the same. Abbreviations are treated like whole words. And do note that with abbreviations, we don't use the apostrophe to form the plural. So I could have, a town could have just one MP, but a city could have two MPs. Capital M, capital P, small s. No apostrophe. MPs here is used as a plural word, not possession. So because the rule applies to the abbreviations as well, then you could have the MPs, MP, S, apostrophe, expenses are being scrutinized. So when I say the MP's expenses are being scrutinized, capital M, capital P, small s, apostrophe, I mean all the MPs, all the Member of Parliament's expenses, with an apostrophe after the S. But if I say the MP's expenses are being scrutinized with capital M, capital P, apostrophe, small s, expenses, so because it is apostrophe S, I'm just talking about one MP here. It's just one MP's expenses that are being scrutinized. Another confusing one with the apostrophe and the S is when we talk about years, like the 1980s. Do we use an apostrophe with 1980s or not? If you mean, the full 1980 to 1999, these all 10 years, then no apostrophe. The 1980s 19X0 small s is fine. Could be used as an adjective. I could say the 1980s fashion is back. And when I say the 1980s fashion is back, I don't need an apostrophe there at all, because 1980s here could be used as an adjective, like you could use the window frame, for example. Window frame, is a noun. Window is used as an adjective for frame, window frame, rather than windows frame, window frame, windows frame. Because a window frame, window is used as an adjective there. Same thing with 1980s, the 1980s fashion, 1980s, you don't need an apostrophe at all there. Could be used as an adjective. However, if you write about something that is from 1980 itself, from the year 1980, like for example, Dirty Mind by Prince was a 1980s album. What do I mean by was a 1980s album? 1980 apostrophe S album. I mean it's from the year 1980, not 1981, not 1982 and so on. It was out in the year 1980. So here you can have 1980 apostrophe S, 1980s album. Now let's have a look at some exceptions or irregularities. Would you say Mr. Jones' car is yellow? So Mr. Jones' apostrophe car is yellow. I would say Mr. Jones's car is yellow. So Mr. Jones' apostrophe S car is yellow. Do you prefer Mr. Jones' car is yellow, or do you prefer Mr. Jones's car is yellow? The thing is, both are acceptable. It really depends on how you say it. If you say Mr. Jones' car is yellow, then it will be Jones' apostrophe. But if you say Jones's, Mr. Jones's car is yellow, then it will be Jones' apostrophe S due to the way you say the word or the sentence. So both are acceptable. Having said that, I think more people would say Mr. Jones's car is yellow, S apostrophe S, rather than Mr. Jones' car is yellow. I mentioned earlier the word cactus, that was singular but still ending with an S. Cactus is not the only word like that is singular ending with an S. Thesis is another one. Now, thesis, Thesis, is singular. The plural of thesis would be theses, es. So what happens with, a thesis here? If I have a thesis title, the thesis title is not yet known, or is it the thesis title is not yet known? The thesis apostrophe title is not yet known, or the thesis S apostrophe S title is not yet known. Which one would you say? Now, most people would say the thesis title rather than the thesis title. But there again, like 1980s, if you say the thesis title, most people would probably not use the apostrophe for the thesis title. The thesis title, no apostrophe, is yet to be known, or the thesis apostrophe title is yet to be known, or the thesis title is yet to be known. Most people will say the thesis title or the thesis title without an apostrophe. So the thesis title without an apostrophe will work like the window frame that I mentioned earlier. Now, as always, we've got exceptions. Yes, exceptions with a possessive apostrophe. And the exceptions could be when the words are implied or to form the plural, but that's for a very specific situation. Let's start with the first one, when the words are implied. Shop could be implied in butchers, bakers, and so on. So when I say I go to the butcher's on Saturdays, I mean I go to the butcher's shop on Saturdays. That's what I mean. The word shop is not there, but we understand. I go to the butcher's, apostrophe S, on Saturdays. So the apostrophe S here shows that butcher is the possessor. Possessor of what? Or the possessor of the shop. Is the possessor of the building that you go to. Because you go to a building, you don't go to the person, the butcher. You go to the building where the butcher is. So butcher's, apostrophe S. The possessed item is implied here. Same thing with bakers. I buy bread at the baker's, not at the supermarket. Now, when I say not at the supermarket doesn't need an apostrophe, apostrophe S, whatever, because supermarket is a building, is a place. Baker, however, is a person. So when you say, I buy bread at the baker's, you mean I buy bread in the shop where the baker is. So the shop is the possessed item, baker is the possessor of the shop, but, shop is implied here, it's not there. So baker, apostrophe S. Now, it's always like that. It is a convention. It's always a convention that it is apostrophe S. Doesn't matter how many butchers work in the shop or how many bakers work in the shop, if it is just 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't matter. It's always apostrophe S. Another situation when the possessed item is implied, that depends on the context. And you need the context to understand it. For example, when I say, that cat is not mine, it is Dr. No's. James Bond, Dr. No, he's got a cat. That cat is not mine. It is Dr. No's. When I say it is Dr. No's, I mean it is Dr. No's cat. I don't need to repeat the word cat. We understand from the context here that when I say it is Dr. No's, I refer to the cat. So here, Dr. No is still a possessor, and what he possesses is the cat, the possessed item. The cat is implied, owing to the context. I could say, that cat is not mine. It is the Simpsons. But when I say it is the Simpsons, the apostrophe is after Simpsons. Why is that? Well, because the Simpsons have a cat. And when I say the Simpsons with an S at the end, it's the family Simpsons, okay? It's just not one member of the Simpsons. We've got 5 people, 5 members of the Simpson family. The Simpsons cat. So it will be an apostrophe after the S. So the rule is the same. You just need to think that the possessed item is not just stated, it is implied. Dr. No's cat, the Simpsons cat. Let's have a look at a different situation. I'll give you 2 sentences. Compare. Andrea's and Antonio's parents are lovely with Andrea and Antonio's parents are lovely. What is the difference between Andrea's and Antonio's parents are lovely and Andrea and Antonio's parents are lovely? There is a difference. A subtle difference, but there is one. In Andrea's and Antonio's parents are lovely, again, here I imply parents with Andrea's. Andrea's parents and Antonio's parents are lovely. We've got different parents here. So when I say Andrea's and Antonio's parents are lovely, I'm talking about different parents because I mean Andrea's parents and Antonio's parents are lovely. So parents is implied here with Andrea's. However, when I say Andrea and Antonio's parents are lovely, we've got a different situation here. When I say Andrea and Antonio's parents are lovely, what I imply here is the parents of Antonio are the parents of Andrea. So in other words, Andrea and Antonio are siblings. I mentioned that we don't use apostrophe to form the plural. And it is true in very many cases. Most cases, 99.9% of cases, you don't use the apostrophe to form the plural. There is a tiny exception to that rule. Very tiny one. And that's because without the apostrophe, we could confuse the word as a full word. What do I mean by that? Dot the I's and cross the T's. Dot the I's, I apostrophe S, and cross the T's, T apostrophe S. If I put an apostrophe here, I get dot the E's and cross the T's. Dot the E's and cross the T's. Because IS could be a word is. And TS, T's, it's a T's. Dot the I, dot the E's and cross the T's. It's not dot the E's and cross the T's, it's actually dot the I's and cross the T's. So to get the meaning of I's rather than E's, we use an apostrophe. Dot the I's, I apostrophe S. To say, I'm not talking about the word is, I'm talking about more than one letter I. And it is true as well with do's and don'ts. With that apostrophe, I could read that as does and don'ts. It's not does, it's not the word does, it's actually the word do. We're talking about more than one do, do's and don'ts. So don'ts has an apostrophe to show a letter missing, the O missing, but it doesn't have an apostrophe with the S. The do's have the apostrophe there, the O apostrophe S for more than one do, because without it, we could read it as a single word, those. So that's a reason. But that's, a very, very tiny exception. In most cases, you don't use an apostrophe to form the plural at all. This is very much a rare exception. Another exception, and that's with well-known firms. Now, well-known firms tend to drop the possessive apostrophe. For example, Citizens Advice Bureau. Initially, it was Citizens EN apostrophe S Advice Bureau, but the S was dropped. Barclays is short for Barclays Bank, the Bank of Barclay, but again, the S disappeared. Harrods, the shop Harrods Shop, but again, the apostrophe disappears. So these are well-established organizations that initially had an apostrophe, but that one disappeared over time to become a full name. There are some shops, like Waterstones. I found two different signs for Waterstones, one with an apostrophe and another one without. And I think Waterstones shop is in a transition where at some point all the signs will be Waterstones without an apostrophe. But you do see the apostrophe disappearing from signs. And you can see that sometimes on road signs. And for your information, I found that article, an interesting one. That article that says apostrophes in street signs have been banned by a council because its staff spend too much time dealing with complaints about grammar. So that council has decided that the road signs will not have apostrophes whatsoever. But as I say, even when you go to shops like menswear, you can go to a shop, you can see menswear, MES, wear with no apostrophe. Strictly speaking, there should be an apostrophe. There's no reason why they wouldn't put an apostrophe. To my mind, it is a mistake. You see that more and more often, but really it should be MEN apostrophe S. I hope this video has clarified the use of apostrophes. I know it is a difficult one, but keep in mind that structure. You need to have a possessor followed by a possessed item side by side. Possessor, possessed item side by side. If you put an apostrophe S or an apostrophe to that word, it means that word is a possessor. So if that word is a possessor, then something belongs to that word. What is it? If there's nothing belonging to that word, then it's probably just a plural. Don't use the apostrophe. Thank you very much.